Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great show for you today. First, jury selection begins in the Alec Baldwin case. More Gypsy Rose Blanchard news. A suspect was arrested for the deceased body found on that New York sidewalk. Andrea Yates, probably one of the top 10 worst moms ever, doesn't want to be released from custody. Do this, and yes, you will go to prison for 100 years. Road rage, ladies and gentlemen. How many times have we talked about it? Let it go. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and remember, you can listen to us anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Remember, it is Tuesday. What does that mean? It means we're going live tonight, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Yes, with the holiday, we didn't do it for a couple of weeks, but we are ready to go tonight, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Set your clocks. Join us. Immediately following that, we'll have our Patreon show. And yes, we'll be answering comments. So all you people that think I'm completely wrong on everything that I've said about Karen Reed's case, you can come and let me know, and I'll answer your questions. All right? I'm here for it. If you disagree with me, we'll answer your questions first. All right? Let's get to the docket. So let's open the record for July 9th, 2024. Yes, Mr. Alec Baldwin has appeared at the court with his wife for moral support as he starts trial in the case where he could wind up in prison for 18 months if he's ultimately found guilty for the shooting death on the set of his movie Rust. Now, Baldwin, like I said, could face 18 months in prison. That's what the co-defendant got after her conviction. So we'll have to see what takes place. Now, Mr. Baldwin is accused of negligence when he accidentally shot dead a cinematographer on the set there in New Mexico. Now, the case in Santa Fe is expected to last up to 10 days, with opening statements likely to begin on Wednesday. Now, the judge thought that they could get a jury seated in one day. Mr. Baldwin's attorneys didn't think that was even going to be possible. In fact, the defense attorney said, "I don't think I've ever seated a jury in one day. I can't imagine this being the first time." Well, welcome to a smaller jurisdiction, Mr. Attorney Man. You are no longer in California. I have seated jurors in homicide cases in one day. Sometimes crimes against children take a little longer, but most courts move along pretty expeditiously, and it's possible. We'll have to wait and see. Things come up in jury selection. It's the jury selection voir dire process is not being televised, at least as not of yet. But if something changes, we'll bring it to you. But we will bring you the trial from beginning to end when it starts, once they get that jury selected. Anyway, now, like I said, Mr. Baldwin has a lot of pressure in this case, which his lawyers have called a complete abuse of an innocent person whose rights have been trampled to the extreme. Now, for those who don't know or don't recall, Mr. Baldwin was the producer and the star of Rust, like when he shot the cinematographer Helena Hutchins, a mother, while filming with a prop gun that had live rounds inside the gun. The film's director, Joel Souza, was also injured as well. And like I said, we will have to wait and see if we can get a jury and get this ball rolling. Now, Baldwin was originally charged back in January of 2023 with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, but those charges were dropped 3 months later in light of some new evidence. Prosecutors said that they needed more time to investigate. So instead of dealing with speedy trial issues, they just dismissed the case. Now, that was a lot of it had to do with the gun, because the gun at issue was destroyed by the FBI when they were banging it around to make sure that it was functioning, and doing the functioning test, they actually broke it. Anyway, they put it back together again, kind of like Humpty Dumpty. And what happened to it is certainly ripe for cross-examination by Mr. Baldwin's attorneys. So, like I said, Mr. Baldwin now has been charged for the second time. And he has pled not guilty to all the charges, and we certainly give him the presumption of innocence. Now, as we've noted before, the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, she was the responsible for the firearms on the set. She went to trial and was found guilty by a jury of her peers and was ultimately sentenced by the same judge that Mr. Baldwin is now appearing in front of, where she received an 18-month prison sentence. Now, Gutierrez-Reed has offered a preview, obviously, as to what would take place in Mr. Baldwin's trial, and we'll see how that comes out. We'll see if it is a different ending. Now, the prosecution is attempting to make Mr. Baldwin appear as a individual, a producer that was rushing the filming due to the movie having a small budget, and there were obviously created issues related to safety when you cut corners. It is alleged that in one scene from the filming that was shown during the Gutierrez-Reed trial, Baldwin demanded a second shot of a scene immediately after one that was just finished. I think producers, directors like that kind of stuff. They do that. They have a budget. Time is money. Is it negligence? We'll have to wait and see. Is it involuntary manslaughter? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, in that same shot, he says, right away, let's reload. Here we go. Come on. We should have two guns, both reloading. So in the first trial, witnesses said that Baldwin could have used a stick in the scene where he accidentally shot Hutchinson, where obviously she died, because it was just a rehearsal known as a blocking. But Baldwin insisted on using the real gun, known as his hero props, because he preferred them. Another claim made during that original trial with Ms. Gutierrez-Reed was that Baldwin declined to do safety briefings with Gutierrez-Reed before filming actually had started. Now, the night before the incident took place, 6 camera crew members quit because of their concerns over safety. A crucial point of contention is likely to be whether Mr. Baldwin's claim that he never pulled the trigger on the gun, a claim that has been called into question by the prosecution's firearm expert during the Gutierrez-Reed trial. As you may recall, Mr. Baldwin went on an ABC News program back in December of 2021 and said, quote, "I didn't pull the trigger. I would never point a gun at anyone and never pull a trigger. Never." The defense is likely to blame Gutierrez-Reed and the first assistant director, Dave Halls, who handed Mr. Baldwin the gun and told him that it was cold, meaning that it wasn't loaded with live bullets. Halls has already pled no contest to a charge of negligent use of a deadly weapon, and he received a 6-month probationary sentence. So that's what happens sometimes when you go along, get along, right? Go to trial, go to prison, cooperate with the prosecution, get probation. Just reality of life sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, during the Gutierrez-Reed trial, Mr. Hall said he was negligent in checking the gun properly. Well, if he was negligent, and that was his job, how could Mr. Baldwin be negligent? That's going to be the task for the prosecutors to prove. Some people will say you never, ever, ever point a weapon at anyone, that you should always treat it as loaded, and never point at anything you don't intend to shoot. And, you know, all the gun safety rules. So we'll see how that comes out for Mr. Baldwin. I don't know. If I was a betting man, I'd say, hey, blame it on the young armorer on the set. And then you got Mr. Baldwin. Gee, is the jury going to be swayed by his gravitas as a movie star? Or are they going to say, gee, I really hate the Alec Baldwin, that I know him outside of movies, so maybe he acts that way in real life too. What a jerk. He should have been more careful. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking negligence. I have a real problem with a negligence standard. I know some people think it's great. Criminal courts were meant for intentional, knowingly, maybe reckless, but negligent? No, that's what the civil world is for. Next on the docket, some big Gypsy Rose Blanchard news. That's right. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is pregnant with her first child. She made the announcement today. Now, the 32-year-old Gypsy Rose and her boyfriend, Ken Urker, shared the news on their YouTube channel on Tuesday. She stated that she is 11 weeks pregnant, and she states that Ken and I are expecting our very first child come January of 2025. Now, Miss Blanchard's announcement comes from after her separation from her husband, Ryan Anderson, in March, and said that she was back with Mr. Urker the following months. Now, the Munchausen by proxy poster child victim was released from the correctional center in Missouri back in December of 2023 after serving the mandatory 7-year sentence of her 10-year sentence for, that's right, conspiring to kill her mother, Dee Dee. Let's just be clear. Conspiring to kill her mother, ladies and gentlemen. She pled guilty to it. I know the Munchausen thing. I get it. But she pled guilty. Anyway, she pled guilty to that. So, just to keep that in perspective. Anyway, we wish her well. We can't wait for the big party as to announce the sex of the child. I can only imagine. I can hardly wait. Anyway, as you may recall, Ms. Blanchard and her estranged husband, Mr. Anderson, married while she was in prison, but their relationship fell apart just weeks after her release from prison. Now, Mr. Anderson stated that he was somewhat blindsided by Blanchard's request for a divorce and blamed it on her relationship with Mr. Urker. He says, quote, "I'm not doing well with it. For me, it just came out of the blue." He said he had absolutely no idea that she still had such strong feelings for this other guy, referring to the ex-fiancé, Mr. Urker, now father of her child. Soon-to-be child, I guess. Anyway, at first, following the separation from Mr. Anderson, Blanchard insisted Urker was just a friend and that there was no intimacy whatsoever. Anyway, behind bars, a little recap, Gypsy further cultivated a relationship with Urker, who struck up a dialogue with the then prisoner back in 2019 through a letter of support he penned after he watched the HBO documentary regarding her life story. They then became pen pals, which gave way to a romantic relationship. The two were briefly engaged before things fizzled out. And then in 2020, Blanchard found a second romantic prospect, that's right, Mr. Anderson, who, like Ken, wrote to her while she was in prison. The two went on to tie the knot in a private ceremony that took place in the confines of the prison in 2022, and they separated in March. Who would have thought that wasn't going to work out? Anyway, Gypsy Rose, we wish you well. Congratulations. I'm sure you'll be a much better mom than your mom was to you because everyone's going to be watching. In fact, you're going to let everyone watch. I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it. Gypsy, we're with you, though. We'll be watching you. Next, a suspect arrested for that body found on the street in New York. Yeah, that's right. Guess what? The guy just happened to be a parolee with a lengthy criminal history, and he's been taken into custody after the New York woman was found shot dead and wrapped in a sleeping bag and dumped outside the trash, according to the police. Now, Chad Irish was arrested with concealment of a human corpse, criminal possession of a weapon, and menacing charge after being brought in for questioning on Monday regarding the death of Yasmin Williams, the deceased woman. Anyway, he has not yet been charged with homicide as of yet. They anticipate that is forthcoming. Now, the suspect, Mr. Irish, served 3 years in prison after he was convicted of attempted arson for trying to blow up his uncle's home in the Bronx back in 1994 by dislodging a gas pipe and 2 propane tanks, sparking an explosion. Anyway, the person of interest, Mr. Irish, was mobbed by dozens of angry locals Monday afternoon when police hauled him out for questioning over Miss Williams' death. Now, the mother of the victim, Nicole Williams, was among those who came to see face-to-face Mr. Irish after police brought him outside the Strauss House, which is a New York City Housing Authority complex, apparently in Kips Bay, on a stretcher and loaded him into the ambulance. At least one man managed to punch Mr. Irish, yelling, "Kill him." Anyway, Miss Williams' body was found stuffed inside of a sleeping bag and dumped next to a pile of trash on East 27th Street in Manhattan late Friday afternoon. Her death was ruled a homicide after police confirmed that she'd been shot in the head. Now, the victim's mom earlier told the police that she believed her daughter's killer was a friend of hers who uses a wheelchair. Turns out Mr. Irish wound up as a person of interest after he was allegedly seen in an electric wheelchair dragging what appeared to be a sleeping bag. I'd say that's some pretty good circumstantial evidence, is it not, ladies and gentlemen? We'll continue to follow that one. Next, Andrea Yates, baby killer. She does not want to get out of custody. Do you all remember the Andrea Yates case? This was all we talked about, the case from South Carolina where it seemed like everybody was drowning their kids. Anyway, Andrea Yates was the Texas mother who drowned her 5 children back in 2001 while in the throes of a postpartum psychosis. Anyway, she remains housed in a mental hospital. And if she gets her way, she says, I don't ever want to be released. Now, apparently Miss Yates has declined a hearing to attend that she could have attended last month that would have determined whether she was competent to be released from the mental hospital. Now, under the terms of her convictions, Miss Yates is eligible to undergo a review each year. She has repeatedly declined to be assessed. Now, Miss Yates apparently lives quite a little quiet life inside a state hospital, which is intended for those acquitted of criminal offenses and committed by a court to receive inpatient mental health services, basically not guilty by reason of insanity. This is where they go. Anyway, she spends her days making greeting cards and other crafts, often featuring rainbows and butterflies. She sells her crafts at art shows and festivals, and the proceeds from her sales go to the Yates Children Memorial Fund, which helps people suffering from postpartum depression. Now, in a courtroom testimony, it is alleged that Miss Yates waited for her husband, Rusty, to go to work. When he was gone, she then began to kill her children, Noah, 7, John, 5, Paul, 3, Luke, 2, and Mary, 6 months old, all one by one. After she drowned the children, she called 911 repeatedly, and she reported the children's death. Then she called her husband, Rusty, a NASA engineer at the time, and told him to come home from work. Well, ultimately, Miss Yates was charged with 5 counts of capital murder. The prosecutions obviously called the crimes, which they were, heinous and advocated for the death penalty. But the defense argued that Miss Yates suffered from severe depression and psychosis as a result of her recent delivery, and that caused her to kill all of her children. They sought intensive mental health treatment rather than prison. She was initially convicted of capital murder and then sentenced to life in prison. Even behind bars, though, she expressed delusional thoughts, telling authorities that she had considered killing the kids for years to save them from eternal damnation. She stated, while in prison, my children weren't righteous, she told her jail psychiatrist. They stumbled because I was evil, the way I was raising them. They could never be saved. They were doomed to perish in the fires of hell. Anyway, based upon her mental state, Miss Yates' lawyers appealed the case and were granted a retrial. She was found not guilty by reason of insanity in 2006, and then she was ultimately sentenced to the state hospital. Now, while Ms. Yates is eligible for a hearing to determine her sanity, she is not required to seek release. And according to the courts, she can spend the rest of her life in this facility. She apparently talks to her ex-husband monthly, despite the fact that they've divorced and he has remarried. And her defense attorneys have stated that Ms. Yates is quite happy and thriving at the state hospital and the only place that she has called home for the last 17 years. And frankly, that's where she needs to be. I can't necessarily disagree. If she doesn't want to go, she killed 5 people. I'm not saying she would do it again, but are you going to be the one to take that chance? I don't know if you would be. And if she doesn't want to go, I guess I'm okay with it. Let me know what you think. Anyway, if you do this, you can go to prison for 100 years, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. In fact, I'm telling you, don't do this. Because 1, you'll have a victim, and that'd be horrible. And 2, you can go to prison for 100 years. So don't do this. Anyway, judges handed down the maximum prison sentence for a former McDonald's employee who stabbed and robbed a customer last year. Please meet Judge Kenneth Ballard. He sentenced Richard Thornton to 100 years in prison on a first-degree robbery charge. The incident happened in the Elkview McDonald's bathroom in West Virginia in January of 2023. The judge said, "You attacked a stranger in the bathroom of a McDonald's completely unprovoked. And after stabbing him multiple times in the face and neck, you took his wallet. He had been rushed to the hospital to be treated for these life-threatening stab wounds. the judge noted to Mr. Thornton in his statement. Anyway, the deputies arrested Mr. Thornton at a nearby gas station shortly after the incidents, and deputies said that Mr. Thornton was carrying the victim's wallet and a bloody knife with him at the time of his arrest. The district attorney noted that Mr. Thornton was just looking to steal and called it a crime of opportunity since Thornton did not know the victim. The victim was a 57-year-old man. He appeared in court but did not speak and had his victim impact statement read by the victim advocate. Anyway, Mr. Thornton, the guy who did the stabbing and stealing, apologized to the man he injured and asked the judge to go easy on him, stating, "There's nothing I can ever do or say to change what happened, to take this back, or even to begin to ask for any kind of forgiveness," Mr. Thornton noted. "I'm terribly sorry for this man and what's happened to him. I'm here hoping to get a fair judgment today and wish him the best of luck." I mean, can you just feel the sympathy, the empathy for the victim in that particular statement? I mean, I tried really hard too. Anyway, the judge said not only did Thornton risk another man's life, but he also threatened others before the McDonald's incidents. The judge noted that over the years, you've threatened and chased family members with hatchets and with knives, as well as EMS workers. Your fixation with knives and your history of extreme violence, I find you a serious danger to the community and a high probability that you will re-offend if you are released. The judge said, "I have a duty to protect this community." Therefore, 100 years. I can't disagree with the judge. Violent criminals, they have to go to prison until they get so old that they can't hurt anybody else. That's just the general rule, ladies and gentlemen. It's not written somewhere. You're not going to find it somewhere, but that's the way it is. Okay? 100 years, he'll probably be out in 30, given today's system. So, who knows? Not sure what the rule is there in West Virginia, how much time he'll actually serve, but I'm sure it's not the whole 100 years. Next on the docket, road rage. How many times have I said, just let it go? Let it go. Take a look at this video. This road rage driver got a little karma when she got out of her car to confront another motorist, only to realize that, oh, look at this. She forgot to engage her own parking brake or put it in park, and then her vehicle started rolling down the street. Like I said, this video has shown up. This unidentified woman dressed in a white tank top and a Miami Marlins baseball cap accosting the other driver as he filmed their encounter. What are you tweaking about? The male motorist inquires as the woman opens her car door to scold him for allegedly spinning and swerving on the road, claiming to have an 82-year-old man as her passenger. The road rage driver was allegedly intoxicated during the entire incident. The woman, noticeably slurring her words, stated, "Just because it's 4th of July doesn't mean that you can be an effing jerk." The man finally says, "You're the effing jerk," and earning the ultimate FU. Anyway, and he says, "You were the one that was swerving because I was following you." She then throws open her car door and emerges from her car to challenge his assertion. But before she can even stand up straight, her sedan starts rolling away without her realizing it. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at it. Let it go. You never know what you're going to get when somebody gets out of their car or they approach your car. Anyway, the footage ends with the woman and all three vehicles continuing on their way. The angry woman's sedan pulls out in front of the driver who filmed the encounter, showing a sizable fresh dent on the driver's door. Neither driver's identity was immediately known, and nor was it apparent where the incident exactly took place. Now, the SUV with the woman's car that was hit appeared to have a Florida license plate. The palm trees could possibly indicate that they were in Florida. And finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. Yes, a 1 a.m. argument about relationship issues turned a little violent when Kayleen Treesetter threw an Apple device, not an apple, but an Apple device, ladies and gentlemen, at the man who turned out to be the father of her children. Why did she throw it? Well, apparently the man had placed her belongings in plastic bags. Apparently the watch came from somewhere, hit the victim in the left ear, causing a small cut which bled, according to the arresting officers. And the man's V-neck T-shirt was stretched and torn by the defendant, who grabbed him by the collar. The alleged attack occurred at the couple's Florida home. She and the victim are parents of 3 small children. Now, tree setter was arrested on misdemeanor count and booked into the county jail and released on her own recognizance. Now, tree setter was ordered by the judge to have no contact with the victim, with the exception for exchanging the children. It's unclear what exactly happened or what did not happen to the Apple device. Anyway, Miss Tree Setter, you are our dumb criminal of the day. Sorry about your circumstances. Doesn't sound like things are going well. 3 small kids. But violence is never the answer, ladies and gentlemen. Violence is never the answer. Remember that. It's never the answer. All right. That's all we have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Remember, join us live 6 p.m. Mountain Time, where we will talk about what you want to talk about. We'll probably talk about Karen Reed, probably talk a little bit about Alec Baldwin, and anything you want to discuss as well. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you this evening. And remember, the Constitution matters.